reflections from our yesterday's message, and some of the things that I keep mulling around in my head that may help you as we work through what it means to recalibrate our lives toward where God wants us to be as a people. And so as yesterday we focused on worship, God, how we refocus and recalibrate our worship, specifically looking from Psalm 84. Now, it's one of those psalms I just love. It's a wonderful psalm. It reminds us of some deep truths there. And it started out by reminding us that worship begins with a deep longing for God. Worship is all about the presence of God, and not just it's not something that we come together and do. We don't just go through the motions. No, we enter into the presence of God. And so as we think about that really shapes everything that we're doing. It's not just that we're coming together. It's not that we're doing this or that for any specific reason other than this is how we draw near to God. And one of the beautiful things is in different cultures, that'll look different ways. If you have had an opportunity to go to a different culture, you'll see they worship in different ways. They have different patterns there that just reflect their experience of entering to the presence of God and coming to meet with Him. And so that's a good thing, but we have to acknowledge that we so quickly, so easily can fall into this trap, this rut. Hey, this is what we do. This is how we go about this. This is what happens next. This is what happens next. You can just almost go through the list there and end up in a position where you're going through the motions. And like I said, we're phoning it in. And that's where we don't want to be. We want to move away from that. We want to move to a place where worship is part of who we are, an expression of our relationship with God coming together with Him. And we saw that one of the things that we saw next was that God often revitalizes, often reshapes the way we come to Him in worship through pain. And we acknowledge, everybody will just be with me on this, that's not the way we would choose to do it if we had the option. If there was a painful way and a non-painful way, we're taking the non-painful one. Let's take the one that, let's take the path that looks easy and smooth. Let's not take the one that's going to take us through the valley. That's just the way we are. And that's not something that we have to kind of say, hey, you know what, I would really rather not. I mean, that's just the way it is. And so there's nothing to really be ashamed of there, but we have to understand that if God is moving and if God is doing something, we can trust Him in the middle of that pain, okay? That's one of the times where often God will do something in the middle of pain that He could not do anywhere else. It's kind of like, your kids. There are things that you can tell your kids right now. Hey, don't do this because of this, right? You know, parents, you understand this. Like, okay, look, I can tell them this until I'm blue in the face. And they're just not going to get it. And so they're going to have to what? They're going to have to learn the hard way. We don't like doing that as a parent, but we know that there are certain things that our kids just can't learn. They won't learn until they go through it. And so that's a painful place to be. That's if we're honest, that's not where we really want to be, but that's the way it is. That's part of our humanness, right? We can be told something, but we won't know it until we go through it. And so that's part of our humanness there. And so as we look at the book of Psalms just over and over, I just want to invite you, just take a psalm. I guarantee you, you have over a 50% chance of coming across a psalm where there is a lot of pain. Somebody is pursuing somebody's life, something's going wrong. You'll hear, oh God, why this? And really they're songs of people in the midst of pain. And they're there because, well, God's leading them through it. And so that's not how we would like it to be, but that's how it is. But if you read those Psalms, you'll also see a great expression of trust in God. There's often oh Lord, why? This is happening, why? But I will trust in you. There's usually something pulled right back beyond that. But I will trust in you in this. And so that's one of those places where God will draw us nearer to Himself in the midst of pain in a way He couldn't in another way. And we also see this in the New Testament. This is one of those times where we can sit back and say, you know what? We have this more than one place. Just think about 2 Corinthians 4:17. And where Paul says, and our light and momentary afflictions, our light and momentary troubles. Now, by the way, if you want to go back and look at what Paul considers light and momentary, I invite you to do that, because I guarantee you they are not what you would call light and momentary, okay? The things that he experienced, the things that he went through, go and read the book of Acts, specifically starting in chapter 10 to the end. Like, the things you're going to see Paul go through, not light, not momentary. But they are light and momentary in perspective. They're light and they're momentary because when you put them next to eternity, a whole lifetime of pain can't possibly compare to 10,000 years in the presence of God. So that's why he can say light and momentary in comparison to eternity there. But he also says that our light and momentary troubles are producing. All right, so just take that word. They're producing. They are working something in your life. Look, let me just go ahead and encourage you right now. If you're a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ, there is never a trial, there's never a pain, there is never a heartache, there is never anything you will go through in your life that is pointless. It is always meaningful, always God working for His glory and His purposes in your life. No meaningless suffering here. You may not understand what it is. You may not understand what it is this side of heaven, but there's never a time when it is pointless. It is always doing something. God is always doing something in those times. But look what he says. It is always producing for us an eternal weight of glory that far outweighs them all. And so this is an eternal weight of glory. He says, look, there's going to come a time when you close your eyes on this side of eternity, when everything else is gone, and you will open your eyes in the presence of Jesus, and you will say everything that I went through was totally worth it. Because in that moment, you're going to enter into His presence, and you're going to see His glory and appreciate it in a way you could not have otherwise. And it will fill you, and everything you've gone through, you'll say, totally worth it. And that's a promise that we can cling to. And what if I told you right now, hey, look, you're going to have the next 2 years of your life, you're going to be absolutely terrible. Everything that can happen to you will happen to you in the next 2 years. But for the next 20 years, the payoff will be immensely greater. Everything that you've experienced won't even compare to it. Would you do it? I think most of us would take that bargain. If we knew that we could bear down and get through it, that there's something greater on the other side. And that's basically what was laid out for us. There is something greater on the other side. And everything that we go through here makes that seem even greater. And so this is one of those times where we, as a people, have to really lean in to what God is telling us, to the truth that we are being told, to the reality that we have to embrace. And know that when we come together in worship, having gone through that, we can come with a longing, with an expectation, with a joy that we could not have come any other way. That's painful, but God uses it. And so I want to encourage you with that, because maybe you are right now. I mean, I know people have lost jobs, finances are tight, you're together with your family, and maybe you're starting to butt heads on different issues. I understand. But what if right now God is leading you through this season, and I guarantee you He is. He's leading you through the season so that you have a deeper joy at His presence. And you know Him, and you know His work in a way you couldn't have otherwise. So I want to encourage you there. Stay faithful, stay strong. Always work His purposes in your life. We saw finally that God's presence is ultimately what satisfies our soul. God's presence, being in the presence of God, is what satisfies our soul. And, as I was reflecting last night, I realized that may not have been the clearest way of putting that, just because we don't use that language very often. We don't talk about satisfying our souls very often. That's something. This is one of those times where you can sit there and you can say, well, you can tell I've read Puritans and stuff like that, and that's fine. But I realize we just don't use that language very often, so maybe I need to take a step back and help kind of fill that in a little bit. What does that mean? Well, it means that we all have a hunger deep in our hearts, a void in there that we know something is missing. And ultimately, that void is what was created by sin, because we were created for fellowship, to be in the presence of God. But sin breaks that fellowship, and so we are broken, and we don't. Our hearts were created for, and so we have this problem that we have to address, and that's leaving that void. And so the question is, what's going to fill that hole? What's going to fill that void? Well, that's the satisfaction. What's going to satisfy that longing, that hole? What is going to fill it? And so that's the satisfaction we're looking for. It's that what's down in our soul. And so we instinctively try to fill it. We instinctively look for ways to fill that deep longing that we have. Try to find meaning in work. We try to find meaning in any number of things, job, family, all these things that we try to grasp ultimate meaning from. But the problem is, none of those were ever created to fill that void. None of them can ever fill that void. If for no other reason, they're all temporary. So that's the point, that so many people are going about trying to fill that void with stuff. Again, job, success, popularity, fame, all those things. And they think that that's going to make them happy. But so often, how many people have you met who said, man, I thought this was going to do it, and it didn't. There's just kind of this letdown. And that's built in. Like, this is kind of one of those times where, I don't know, I've had this with my kids a couple of times. You're sitting there, and you're like, I can already tell you how this is going to end, but, you're not going to listen to me, so you go ahead. I already know how it's going to end. You can already see it coming a mile away. Well, that's what we're at. So the question that we have to ask is, what can fill it? And the reality is, the only thing that can fill it is God Himself. The reality that God has made us for Himself, for that relationship. That's why we were created. That's why we are meant to have that relationship. So if we aren't seeking that, we're going to try to fill it with something, and it's not going to work. Now, as I was also reflecting on this, one of the things I thought about is, I think right now we're seeing people starting to shift, a number of people starting to shift the way that they're filling that hole, filling that void. And I think it's particularly acute right now while we're on social distancing and while we aren't able to be together with other people, that we're filling that with kind of social media frivolousness, just distraction. We're really being distracted. And I think about C.S. Lewis in his Screwtape Letters. He said one of the things that Wormwood is encouraged to do is just keep your guy distracted. Well, you know what? If that was a problem in C.S. Lewis's day, it's infinitely greater now. We're distracted. Now, you take your phone, you pop that sucker out, and you've got entertainment for days. You literally can go on your phone and never have to think again. You can just consume and consume and consume and consume. And the problem is that won't lead to the satisfaction that we need. It won't do what we want it to do. And so as I'm sitting there, maybe I just want to challenge you to think about how's your use of social media and your phone possibly distracting from worship, possibly distracting from what God has created you for. I mean, just challenge you, go look at your screen time report. If you got an iPhone, and I've got idolatry, so I don't know about those other Android nonsense. We do iPhone at our house. Go just under settings, scroll down a little bit, and you'll find this thing that says screen time report. Screen time there, you can see, here's where you're using your time. And I guarantee you, for a lot of us, that's going to be a lot more than we really want to admit. What does it say about us that maybe we're spending hours a day scrolling through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram? I mean, is that telling us that we're just wasting time? Probably. So, there are some tools in there, and, you can set downtime where you can't use your phone from here to here. You can set app limits there. That's not just for kids, by the way. That may be a helpful discipline. In fact, a helpful thing for you might be to just a social media detox. Delete Facebook from your phone for a week. Just see. I know I have to do that from time to time, and I tell you what, it's really, really great. Because it helps refocus and it helps put those things back in order. So as you look through that, and believe me, I do get the irony here that I am saying maybe you should delete the Facebook app from your phone as I'm live streaming through Facebook. I get the irony there. But as we're just thinking through this, maybe that's one of the things, one of the disciplines that we need to build into our lives so that we can enjoy being in the presence of God, enjoy His grace, and find satisfaction in Him in a new way. So I just want to encourage you with that. As we look forward to Sunday, as we look forward to getting back together and coming together and praising and worshiping God, I'm praying for you. I'm praying that God would move in your life in a powerful way. And I'm praying that He would move in our life as a church to prepare us for that day. Well, you guys, thank you so much. I know there are plenty of other things going on right now, but I just want to encourage, stay faithful and see what God will do over the next couple of days as you seek to draw near to Him in preparation for worship. Now have a great day, and I will see you Sunday morning.